I was waking up the other morning and I could feel myself breathing. I could feel oxygen going into my blood through my lungs. I felt my lungs as this living organ expanding with air, contracting, letting the air out. And I thought to myself, this is fucking amazing. When I was younger, I used to get scared about things like swallowing. It would make me think, like, what the fuck am I? My eyes, my brain, there's all of these different parts. Like, where the fuck am I? Maybe it takes years to become acclimated to your physical reality, but I don't think it does. I think what it is that modern society makes us so disconnected from our earthly reality that we find ourselves in that sort of position, that we're actually frightened by it, that we think it's some sort of an occult thing, when it's really just part of being human. So many of us avoid that. There seems to be a conflict between modern economic ways, or business primarily, and just being human. But I've been rereading several books, and I started to read Social Statics. And what I find interesting about all of these different books is that they have that thing that Thomas Jefferson refers to as self-evident, where Hamilton refers to as axiomatic, which is this very connection that we have with the earth, that we can't live without the earth. We can't live without water for a very short time, and then without food we will die. So Spencer and these other philosophers, economists, whatnot, which people attribute to socialism or liberalism or Satanism. Right? uh, their reasoning is, if you deprive a person of the earth, you essentially are depriving that person of life, because their sustenance is derived from the earth. But if you stop and look at America and what it's become, it has essentially become exactly that. People are, in fact, deprived of the earth. Now, I've addressed this in blogs, my Tumblr blog, Blazing Tommy D, on Tumblr. Um, but if you look, if you look back, if you approach this thing radically, and you look in terms of the division of labor, an Adam Smith type thing, or John Locke, and you have a basic community unit, you have a group of people that are working together, they get along together, they have common needs. One person gets water, one person grows grain, the other one mills it, someone bakes it into bread, so on and so forth. Eventually, things will happen, like maybe the guy that gets water is injured and has to be replaced. So, somewhere you have to have some means and some structure whereby the whole process is managed. And regardless of what you refer to that as, it's nonetheless government. It doesn't matter whether this is a private company or whether it's a private association or whatever it is, that managerial function essentially is government. So you have these two factors here. You have uh, what are now known as corporations, which is a rather innovative thing. It's only several hundred years old. And there's nothing that's evil or invidious about corporations per se. All that it is essentially is people are paying capital, whether it's money or whether it's property or whatnot, into a common treasury. And then through a legal instrument, they are recognized under the law as one person. So these corporations have systems of government. And one of the strange things about America is that, and it's, I guess this is what's covered in these books. There's a book, Progress and Poverty. Um, that as things become more complicated, or Malthus addressed this some time ago also, that the Earth does not have the capability of sustaining the growth of the population. So one of the things that's unavoidable in economics, because we're dealing with the utilization of limited resources, is the fact that population growth is the easiest way to limit resources. If you want to create shortages of things, then just go fucking crazy. Which is pretty much what people have done in the United States. So I think what a lot of people don't understand is when they romanticize about the United States. Someone was on the internet the other day, yeah, how wonderful America is, and they're quoting Samuel Clemens and all of this stuff. I mean, yeah, sure. When Samuel Clemens was alive and bread was like 2 cents a loaf, there were no milk boards or anything like that. I mean, it was really cheap to survive. But nowadays, uh, people will come up with different explanations, but essentially, everyone in the United States, uh, practically everyone, labor people, spend almost all of their disposable income, or all of their income really, uh, on subsistence. The easiest way to see this is that everyone is in debt. Why are they in debt? Because all of the money that they have, that they collect, is used to survive, and then whenever they have to get something else, like, well, we have to have a big screen TV or a cell phone or something, or I have to get my tooth pulled out, they have to go into debt in order to do that. So what this has come around full circle to, really, and this is nothing new, people were complaining about this for a long time, is that the corporations have assumed a sort of feudalistic function. All of us are like serfs, laborers like serfs. But one of the problems with the feudal system, of course, was in the fiefdom, the vassals would produce so much for the Lord and get to stay on the land, and whatever else they produced they could keep. The problem was that there was no way for them to evolve out of that. They couldn't get into manufacturing and things because there was no means whereby they could raise capital of their own. They would have to always rely upon the landlord. So whatever sort of innovation took place would depend on whether the landlord was, like in American terms, a Simon Legree, or whether they were some magnanimous slaveholder like George Washington or something. So it didn't work, and the alternative to that was capitalism. 1692, the Charter of the Bank of England. So all of these books have come around to the conclusion that it's essentially unfair that that the greater number of people have been deprived of the earth, essentially. You know, it's like people complain about taxes and they cite, I was going to say Lord Mansfield, but it's not. It's the John Marshall, you know, the power to tax is the power to destroy. Well, it's the same idea with depriving somebody of the earth. You're essentially banishing that person from earth. You're killing them. You're depriving them of their life. Um, so all of these people decided, well, there has to be some fair uh, solution whereby the landlords and the property owners and things are not cheated out of their investment or their freehold or whatever you want to call it. But the other people are also made whole. And my position on that is very simple. My position is that the United States government do two things. One is to provide basic subsistence to every man, woman, and child. Uh, of course, someone will have to decide what basic food is, or supply something in lieu thereof, so that people could decide for themselves. But a lot of technological innovation, scientific innovation, and so on and so forth could come of this that would be more beneficial to humanity than creating nuclear bombs and weaponry and things like that. I mean, essentially, you're talking about feeding the people. At one time, America actually had an ideal like this, the American breadbasket, but it's kind of gone away from that. The other part of it is that the government should promote free love and free sex and get away from all of this heteropatriarchy stuff. Because if you combine those two things together, you are essentially looking at all the crime that's committed in the United States of America. So if you provide subsistence to everyone, there's absolutely no reason why anyone should rob or steal in order to eat. And the other part of it is, which is probably subject for another blog, would be to do away with jealousy, crimes of passion. I mean, just look at YouTube. You see that there's essentially two types of pop music. One type is where men are telling women that they'll be their slave, like the Elvis Presley teddy bear. Put a chain around my neck, lead me anywhere. It's kind of interesting too, because so many women love Elvis Presley. And then on the other hand, you have these other songs where the role is reversed, and you have the woman. Be My Baby is a good example. but essentially it's all dealing with the same thing. It's all dealing with jealousy,